This is a wheel from an Emmaljunga Mondial Deluxe, and today we're going to show you how to replace the inner tube or the tire from the wheel itself. So what you're going to want to do is remove the cap for the nozzle and remove any sort of remaining air if it's the inner tube that you are replacing, or remove the air in general if it's just the tire that you are replacing. You want it to be flat. As flat as possible. Then you're going to start separating the tire out away from the rim. In this case, I'm just going to use a pair of spoons. You can really use anything. They have special tools for this. But the important part is that it is rounded and isn't edged so that you don't puncture the inner tube if you plan on keeping the inner tube. Or when you're putting the new inner tube in, if you need to use this to kind of help the tire over the edge. So use something that is hard but rounded, preferably metal. And you're just going to want to dig in under the side of the tire and just pull it out over the edge of the rim. Just working one over the other until you get a decent amount over the rim, and then you can just use your fingers to pull all the rest out. Then you're going to pop that nozzle through and pull out the inner tube. So now if you wish to patch the inner tube, or if you want to replace the inner tube, you wouldn't need to do any more in relation to removing the tire from the wheel. You would just put the new inner tube in. If it's the tire that you want to replace, if it's gotten a bit worn, on this tire for example, you can see when I squeeze it that it's a bit cracked here. It's not so much that I would say it's necessary to replace it, but if you're having troubles with regular punctures, you might want to replace the tire. If you want to replace the tire, then you just have to pull the rest of the tire over the rim, and it should be relatively easy to just pull it off. You pop it off in one place and pull it off, and now you can replace the tire as well. When it comes to a lot of Emmaljunga strollers, this one included, you have these white wall tires, and that's a bit hard to find in a generic form. You will have to order that from Emmaljunga. If you're not so concerned with it having the white wall, however, one advantage to this stroller, being a 14-inch wheel, is that you can find both tires and inner tubes very often in bicycle shops because they are sizes that appear on children's bicycles. So that's kind of handy, a little bit easier to get a hold of parts. Okay, so assuming now you wanted to switch the tire and this was your new tire or your new inner tube, the reversal of the process is as such. You just want to put one edge of the tire over the rim and work it all the way around. Then you're going to take your inner tube and you want it to be as flat as possible again. Remove even more air from it. I'm removing the air just by pressing with something edged onto the little pin inside the nozzle there. Okay, and I'm going to take my inner tube and make sure that it's not twisted, as it is now, and face it so that the nozzle is facing inwards. And find that hole in the rim where the nozzle can fit out, and then I'm going to start feeding it in. Making sure that I don't twist the inner tube as I go. I'm going to push this nozzle through and push it in one more time while holding the tire a bit lower. Now I've made sure that the inner tube isn't twisted. Now what I need to make sure of is that the inner tube is not going to come between the rim and the tire as I put the second edge of the tire inside. So it's a pretty good setup, but you still have to be careful as you go. I'm going to just start pulling out the tire and pressing it in. You need to be a little extra careful when you come over the space with the nozzle. That's a little bit more of a tight fit. Now it's all been pushed in. Now, as you're pumping this, you want to look on the tire. There is an inner ring, and the reason for that ring is so that you can see that the tire is evenly spaced around the wheel. And now I'm just going to push the tire so that that ring on the inside of the tire looks evenly spaced in relation to the edge of the rim. If you don't do this, you wind up with the tire bulging out on one side, which leads to a pretty bumpy ride, shall we say. Okay, pressing in, looks about even. We'll adjust that at least 1 or 2 more times as we go. And I'm going to start pumping. Recommend using a hand pump. Okay, a little bit more. The idea here is to pump it to the point where you can still shift the tire, but where it's tight enough to hold the adjustments that you make. So I actually can leave that screwed on. There it is. Now I'm just going to push in a bit where I see that ring a little too far out, and pull out where I see that ring a little too far in to further adjust. Spin it, have a look at the other side. Usually if one side is okay, the other side is okay as well. But still, it's good to check. And it looks nice. So now I'm just going to finish pumping it up. Now, even though there's a max PSI indicator on the side of the tire, I do not recommend going by that. That is the maximum amount of air that the tire will take before it pops. Usually I find around half or a little over half of that is good if you're measuring the PSI. I just measure by hand usually, and what I recommend is that it feels very tight, but with the slightest amount of give from when you're pressing in with your thumb. So that's quite nice. Give it a few more pumps beyond what I think is perfect, because we're going to lose a little air when we release the pump. There you go. That is how you replace the tire and inner tube on the wheel of an Emmaljunga Mondial Deluxe. We hope this video has been useful to you, and if it has been, we ask you subscribe, as it helps us to continue making videos in the future. Thank you.